Brennan wasn't supposed to be this far down Corridor 9. The power relays he was assigned to check were 3 levels up, in a well-lit and clearly marked section of Forward Base Epsilon. But 20 minutes into his maintenance route, after chasing a flickering sensor anomaly, Kai had taken a turn near the drop pod hangar and lost his bearings. Here, in the unmarked stretches of the base, the walls all looked the same cold gray panels, flickering overhead lights that buzzed like angry insects, and doors that bore no names, only obscure alphanumeric codes. He glanced down at his portable scanner. The display blinked uncertainly, searching for orientation. Nothing. Typical. A mechanical clicking sound echoed from the far end of the corridor. Not loud, but rhythmic, like clockwork mechanisms being slowly undone. Kai's curiosity got the better of him. Maybe it was a faulty loader arm or one of the exterior maintenance bots stuck mid-cycle. He followed the sound to a door that stood slightly ajar, casting a sliver of dim blue light onto the corridor floor. No markings, no warning signs. Just the sound, steady and precise. Kai hesitated. Protocol said to report anomalies. But Base Command never took his calls seriously. Technician Brennan again? They'd sigh. He stepped closer, heart tapping nervously in his chest. The air behind the door felt warmer, pulsing faintly, like the breath of something alive. He pushed it open. Inside, the room was dark except for a soft ambient glow emitted from a set of energy columns near the walls. The sound he'd followed came from the center, where a tall figure stood alone. Arms lifted slightly as plates of armor detached themselves from her body. Each piece clicked free with perfect timing, folding inward and hovering in the air before floating silently toward the storage racks. Her skin shimmered under the lights, a pale violet hue that shifted with her breath, smooth and luminous like polished amethyst. She stood at least 7 feet tall, her muscles honed but elegant, like a blade that had been sharpened for centuries. Long black curls fell over her shoulders as the final piece of her biometal breastplate disassembled and floated away. Her back was a map of healed scars, symmetrical, ancient, like ceremonial script etched into living skin. Kai knew her name. Everyone on base did. Vexus, the Fawky mercenary. The Thallery weapon. The one no one dared speak to. He should have turned away. He didn't. She turned instead. Amber eyes locked onto his. Kai froze. Everything in him screamed to run, to apologize, to vanish into the corridor and pretend this never happened. He expected a weapon to form in her hand, a disciplinary report to slam into his record, maybe even exile from the base. But she didn't attack. She didn't shout. She smiled, just faintly, like the curl of a crescent moon. You saw, didn't you? Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't even cold. It was smooth, rich with harmonics that resonated through his ribs, low like thunder. Beneath silk. She took a single step forward. The air shifted. Kai opened his mouth. No sound came. He felt it then. Not fear. Not shame. Something else. Something strange warming the space between them. Something pulling gently on the center of his chest. He didn't know what it was, but it settled there like a quiet spark. A connection. Invisible. Unchosen. And irreversible. Kai couldn't sleep. Not because the bass was loud, it never was this deep, underground, but because the image of her stood too clearly in his mind. Vexus, not in her armor, not on a briefing screen, but as she had stood in that dim room, armored, exposed and watching him with a gaze that was not furious or ashamed, but knowing. Almost ancient. Like she had seen this moment before it ever happened. He lay on his cot in his narrow quarters, still in his uniform, staring at the ceiling as if the flickering panel lights might offer clarity. They didn't. The memory of her voice echoed. Again and again. You saw, didn't you? There was no warning in those words, but there had been something else. Invitation. His door chimed. Kai sat up fast, heart leaping into his throat. The base was under night protocol. No one visited now. No one ever visited him at all. The lock disengaged on its own, and she stepped inside. Vexus without armor, without ceremony. Just her, wrapped in a dark flowing fabric that shifted like liquid night as she moved, revealing nothing and yet suggesting coiled strength beneath. Her amber eyes glowed softly in the low light, not from technology, but something deeper, like the heat of a hidden sun. You're not asleep, she said. Not a question. Kai couldn't find his voice. She stepped forward and the door sealed behind her. He noticed the way she moved, precise, like a predator who chose to be graceful. She didn't sit. She didn't ask. She stood at the foot of his cot, watching him like she was still trying to decide what he was. I didn't mean to walk in, Kai said finally, his voice dry and thin. I thought it was just a maintenance room. The corner of her mouth twitched upward. You already said that. Double quotes. Kai blinked. I did? In your head. Her voice dropped lower, and the lights in the room dimmed automatically, responding to her presence or her command. He couldn't tell. What are you? Kai whispered. She knelt suddenly, one knee lowering to the floor with fluid power, her face level with his. Valerie, Fawkey, warrior class. Classified as Vexus, Unit 37, but that's not what you're asking. Kai swallowed. Her scent filled the space between them, metal and something wild. Not perfume. More like ozone. Starlight trapped in skin. I'm asking why you're here. Now. Vexus reached out. Her fingers hovered over his chest, not touching, just close. Enough to make his skin feel charged. Because fate was invoked. And now, I must complete what you began. Kai's breath caught. I didn't do anything. You saw, she said again. That is everything. She finally touched him, her fingertips brushing his chest over the fabric of his uniform. And with that, the room vanished. In its place came visions. Not dreams. Not hallucinations. Memories. Hers. He saw a red sky torn with lightning. Cities made of glass floating above seas that shimmered with living light. Battles against creatures that moved like shadows on fire. The silence of command. The weight of a spear too heavy for anyone but her, and loneliness. Centuries of it. Sharpened into discipline, buried under protocol, but still there. Always. Kai gasped. The connection broke. He was back in his room, trembling, sweat on his neck. Vexus was still knelt in front of him. Her expression unreadable. What was that? He breathed. The bond, she said simply. It is forming. Kai backed away, standing now, confused. And overwhelmed. No, I didn't ask for any of this. She stood too. Neither did I, she said, and for the first time her voice cracked barely, like a stone being scratched. But it has chosen, he shook his head. Then break it. I can't. Her voice was steel again. Sight binds fate. And fate binds souls. You're not mine, Kai Brennan. Not yet, but you are no longer entirely your own. He turned away. This was too much. All he'd wanted was a simple life. A small job. Stars to look at, not bleed under. He was just a tech. Not a chosen anything. There is more, she said, stepping closer. If I leave the base without completing the bond, you will begin to feel the unraveling, confusion, pain, hallucinations, and eventually silence. Silence? Of self, she whispered. The bond does not release, it only frays. Kai felt the edges of panic now. So what do we do? You choose, Vexus said. You accept the bond. Or you run from it. But either way, I will not force it. He stared at her. Part of him screamed to say no. But another part, stronger, older, maybe not even his, whispered yes. Why me? He asked. She stepped close enough to touch him again, but didn't. Because you looked at me, and didn't see a weapon. They stood in silence for a long time. The only sound was the quiet hum of the life support vents. Kai finally sat back down on the cot, breathing unevenly. Vexus turned to leave. Before she reached the door, he spoke again. If this bond is real, he said, then tell me. What happens next? She stopped, didn't look back. Her voice, when it came, was barely louder than thought. Next, she said, I show you who I am. And then you'll have to decide if you can survive what comes with loving me. The door hissed open. She stepped out, and Kai knew sleep wouldn't come again for a long, long time. The stars didn't move inside forward base Epsilon. They burned in silence above the observation dome, held motionless by the artificial gravity lens that projected a perfect view of the sector's celestial canopy. But tonight, for Kai Brennan, the stars pulsed. They throbbed like distant heartbeats. And he could feel each one in his chest. It had been 2 nights since Vexus stepped into his room and told him his fate was no longer his own. 2 nights since she touched him and cracked open the walls of his mind like they were glass. Since then, sleep had become a thin and fractured thing. Not because of nightmares, those would have been kinder. Instead, every time he drifted into slumber, he dreamed her. Not imagined her. Dreamed her. Vivid, detailed, impossibly real. In one dream, he stood atop a glimmering tower on her homeworld. Thaler, looking out over endless miles of crystal forest trees made of living light, whispering memories on the wind. In another, he was in her armor, holding her spear, roaring across a battlefield lit by stars and blood. In yet another, he sat beside her in darkness, both of them younger, unscarred, untouched by war hands brushing but never quite meeting. Time he awoke, his heart racing, his hands trembling, his skin burning with sensations that weren't his. Sometimes her voice echoed in his ears. Sometimes her thoughts lingered behind his own. And always, that pull in his chest. It was getting stronger. He knew what she had meant now by the unraveling. He could feel it. The sensation of being drawn towards something unseen, like gravity, had changed direction. Every hallway felt too long when she wasn't in it. Every silence felt empty of something vital. The base, once his quiet place of solitude, had become a maze of echoes. He tried to focus on his work. He checked power nodes, recalibrated thermal, dampeners, resyncs damaged diagnostic units. But even in the rhythm of his tasks, her presence flickered at the edges of his thoughts. Like she was watching, waiting. Then came the incident. Kai was inside corridor 6C, crawling through a narrow maintenance shaft when his comlink crackled with static. No voice. Just interference. Until suddenly, her voice, soft and quiet, sliced through the noise. You need to come to me. He jolted so hard his scanner nearly slipped from his grip. He tapped the link. Vexus, where are you? No response. The link went dead. He scrambled backward, heart thudding, and nearly collided with Commander Brennan, who wasn't supposed to be there. Br all in single quotes, as pale blue eyes narrowed beneath his officer's visor. Where's your authorization for Shaft 6C, technician? Kai blinked. I was assigned by, you're 2 sectors off your posted route, Brennan interrupted, stepping closer. And you're rattled. What did you see? Kai opened. His mouth hesitated. Brennan tilted his head. You've been near the mercenary, haven't you? Kai's chest went cold. Careful, Brennan, Brennan said softly. Some things aren't meant to be touched or bonded. Kai tried to pass him, but Brennan stepped in front of him again. Too close. This is a human base. We tolerate allies. We don't mingle with them. I didn't, Kai started. Bralin smiled, but there was nothing kind in it. No one cares what you did, only what she did. And she's about to be reassigned. Kai froze. You didn't know? Bralin leaned in, his voice a whisper. Commands orders. Her ship leaves in 24 hours. And when she's gone, the headaches you're feeling, they'll become worse. Much worse. Bralin stepped back, hands behind his back, every inch the picture of calculated cruelty. Some bonds are better broken. Kai didn't respond. He walked. Then ran, through corridor after corridor. His mind screamed. He didn't stop until he reached the outer decks, and she was there. Waiting. Vexus stood alone beneath the stars, her arms folded across her armored chest. The biometal was reassembled now, dark and elegant like midnight glass. But her eyes still glowed, and when they met his, Kai felt the last of his resolve collapse. You called me, he said. She nodded. The bond warned me. Your pain. Your fear. Kai stepped closer. Bralin said you're leaving. She looked away. It's been ordered. Kai's chest burned. So that's it? It just ends? Vexus turned back. No, it doesn't end. It tears. If I leave before the bond completes, your mind will fracture. Your body will follow. Then don't go, Kai whispered. Stay. I can't. Her voice trembled. Vexus's voice trembled. My people face extinction. The Void Hunters have breached the eastern cluster. Every available warrior is being recalled. Even me. Double quotes. Kai reached for her. What happens to me? She touched his chest, over his heart. What happens to us? The connection surged. A vision filled his mind, not her world this time, but a future, one where she was gone, where he screamed her name in darkness, where the stars turned black. His knees gave way. She caught him. And for a long time, they stayed like that. Warrior and technician, bound by something older than stars, more dangerous than war. Vexus's voice was almost too soft to hear. I have one night left. Kai met her eyes. Then show me, he whispered, everything you are, before you go. The alarm lights had not yet begun to flash, but Kai could feel the countdown all the same. The base was quiet, too quiet. Not the comforting silence he was used to in the maintenance corridors, but a suffocating stillness, like the air itself was holding its breath, the kind of silence that knew something was ending or beginning. He sat alone in the observatory, surrounded by curved glass and stars so bright they hurt to look at. The galactic drift spun slowly above him, unmoved by the chaos tightening around his chest. Vexus hadn't come yet. After last night, Kai hadn't expected sleep. But what surprised him more was how different she'd been once the lights were off. No armor, no war speech. Only her, raw, aching, real. She hadn't told stories of battles. She'd told stories of loneliness, of cold nights in orbit above, dying planets, of waking from cryosleep with no names left in her memory except a few whispered in dreams. He had held her hand through all of it. Now she was supposed to leave. 20 hours remained. A soft chime echoed through the dome. Kai turned, heart hammering, and there she was. Vexus. Her armor was gone again, replaced by a woven tunic of deep silver that shimmered when she moved like it was stitched from strands of meteor light. Her hair was unbound, cascading over her shoulders in waves. Her eyes glowed not with power now, but grief. You didn't answer my messages, he said. She nodded once. I couldn't lie to you. And I didn't have the strength to tell the truth. Kai stood. Then tell it now. She stepped into the dome, and the automatic sensors adjusted the lighting to her presence, casting the stars brighter above them. It made her look taller, more otherworldly, more like the myth she was always supposed to be. They've assigned me to the Zirian front, she said, where the Void Hunters have broken through. Most who go there don't return. Kai didn't blink, and you said yes. I didn't have a choice. He walked up to her, standing just inches away now. You had a choice last night. Vexus said nothing. You had a choice when you touched my soul. When you let me see your past. When you opened that bond so wide I can't breathe anymore unless I feel you inside me. A shiver passed through her. That's why I have to. Go. If I stay, you become a reason I hesitate. And hesitation is death. Kai swallowed hard. And what am I supposed to do with the rest of my life? Wait? Wonder if you died screaming in some dark place halfway across the galaxy? She stepped. Closer now, the fire returning to her gaze. No, if I die, the bond will sever, and you'll feel it. Like a sun going out inside you. But until then, you'll feel me wherever I am. And I'll feel you. That is the burden, and the gift. Kai couldn't speak, so she continued, voice trembling. But there's something else. Something I haven't told Command, or the Council. Kai looked up at her. What? Vexus reached into her cloak and pulled out a glowing shard of crystal, smooth and pulsing faintly with golden light. This is a shard from the Thallery source well. It can anchor a bond permanently, even across light years, even across death. Kai stared at it, breathless. You want to anchor us? Only if you choose it, she said. But if you do, there's no turning back. Even if I die, part of you will carry me. And if you die, I will never be whole again. Kai took the shard slowly, cradling it in both hands, and the door hissed open behind them. They turned. Commander Brennan entered the dome. He was alone, but his face was ice. So it's true, he said. The warrior has claimed the technician. Kai stepped in front of Vexus without thinking. We didn't break any laws, Brennan smiled coldly. You broke the unwritten ones. Species don't mix. Warriors don't bond with base trash. And above all, no Thallery stays on a human command post because of love. Kai felt his fists clench. You're scared of her. That's all this is. I'm scared of what she'd turn you into, Brennan growled. You're already forgetting who you were, what you are. A repair tech. A disposable gear in a big machine. Vexus's voice cut like a blade. He is not disposable. Brennan's eyes narrowed. And what are you going to do about it? Run off together and start a war council of two? The moment your back is turned, I'll ensure Command dissolves your bond and reassigns you to isolation. We've done it before. Kai felt the pull of the shard between his hands. Not this time. He whispered. The shard pulsed. The light flared. Vexus gasped and Kai screamed. His mind opened. Not like before. Not a vision. Not a memory. A fusion. There. Bond locked in. Complete. Sealed by the shard's energy. His soul entwined with hers mind, heart, past, future. No longer two people. One. Brennan staggered back. What did you do? Vexus stood taller, glowing now, radiant with shared energy. Her voice echoed with Kai's thoughts as she answered. We became something you can't control. Alarms began to sound throughout the base. Not from the bond, from outside, the void. Hunters had arrived. Vexus turned to Kai. They're early, she said. Kai nodded, still feeling her in his bones. Then let's be ready. There was no sunrise on forward base Epsilon, but when the first warning sirens cried out, the world still changed. Metal walls vibrated with tension. Lights blinked red. Come screamed to life. Soldiers scrambled in corridors, boots pounding the decks in waves of barely controlled panic. And above it all, the sky beyond the observation dome flickered with distant flashes, explosions in orbit, just beyond visual range. The Void Hunters had come early. No declarations, no demands. Just presence. Just annihilation. Kai Brennan stood at the center of it all, barely breathing. He could feel Vexus before he saw her. Through their completed bond, her presence was a causa, current thrumming under his skin, his breath sensed with hers, his fear no longer his alone. When she entered the command hub, heads turned. Not just for her imposing height or the biometal armor she now wore, etched with glowing lines of Fallery. Script, but because something about her had changed. She pulsed. Like she wasn't just a soldier anymore, like she was something more. And Kai was right behind her. The base commander. Colonel Drax didn't look impressed. "You completed the bond without clearance," he snapped, slamming a report. Onto the holotable. "Do you have any idea what that means?" Vexus didn't blink. "It means you no longer control my deployment. It means you compromised Thallery and human command integrity," Drax growled. "And you brought a civilian into a live war zone." Kai's voice cut through the tension. Quiet. Clear. "I didn't ask for the bond." Vexus turned slightly. Looking at him, he stepped forward. "But I accept it. I accept her. And whatever happens now, happens to both of us." The room went silent. And then Brennan entered. Not in uniform. In armor. Sleek. Human-grade war armor with command insignia gleaming. On the shoulder. "Colonel," he said smoothly, ignoring Kai entirely. "We have breach confirmation. 3 hunter craft entered low orbit 5 minutes ago. Shield perimeter held on the first pass." "But barely. Then we intercept," Drax snapped. Brennan nodded. "Already underway. Strike Team Omega is prepping. However," he turned his gaze to Vexus, "we recommend she remain grounded. Potential bond interference in the neural combat interface." Vexus raised one brow. "Interference? Your connection to the technician makes your responses unpredictable. We can't risk compromised neural syncing mid-flight." Kai stepped forward. "She's not compromised. She's evolved." Brallin's eyes narrowed. "No, she's distracted." Vexus tilted her head. "Would you like me to prove otherwise?" Brennan said nothing. But his silence was answer enough. Colonel Drax finally spoke again. "We'll allow her to lead a counter unit, unofficially. If she fails to contain the threat, her bond is nullified, and she will be reassigned to high-threat combat duty on Zirion." Vexus didn't hesitate. Understood. They left the room together, neither of them speaking until they'd reached the lower hangar. Kai turned to her as the blast doors opened. "You don't have to prove anything." She looked at him for a long moment. "Yes, I do. To them?" "No," she said. "To me." A moment later, she stood on the launch platform, her biometal reconfiguring into full warform helmet clicking down, plates shifting into place. She looked less like a person and more like a myth in motion. Then she turned back to him. Removed her helmet, stepped down, and kissed him. Not softly. Not briefly, like he was air and flame and memory all at once. When she pulled back, her voice was a whisper only he could hear. "Whatever happens up there, hold the bond steady. If it breaks, I won't survive." And then she was gone. Kai watched her ship take off, sleek, black, thrumming with Thallery propulsion, and felt every vibration as though it were in his chest. He raced to the observatory, locked himself inside, and activated the neural link stabilizer she'd given him. The shard that had sealed their bond now hovered in its center, glowing bright gold. He sat beside it, closed his eyes. And reached out. He could feel her. Slicing through the stars, diving between hunter craft, her mind on fire with precision and power. Her enemies moved like shadows. Her blades flashed like lightning. Kai felt her fury, her control, her rhythm. Until pain. A sudden spike. She'd been hit. Kai gripped the shard, focused every ounce of thought toward her. Not words, not fear. Just presence. "I'm here." The bond flared, and she rose. Her consciousness surged forward again, reclaiming control. Through her, Kai saw one of the hunter ships peel away, rupturing in flame. The others faltered, losing formation, but something wasn't right. There was another ship, cloaked, closer. Kai saw it a second before she did. He screamed her name aloud. Bond flared so violently that light burst from the shard, searing the walls of the observatory. VEXUS spun midair, unleashing a full plasma pulse in a wide arc. The hidden ship exploded. Silence. For a breathless second, all was quiet, and then she said, inside his mind, "You saved me." Kai sank to the floor, every nerve trembling. "No," he whispered. "We saved each other." But the battle wasn't over. From the upper scanners, 3 more hunter vessels blinked into orbit. This time, they weren't cloaked. They were hunting. Directly. For him. Vexus's voice returned. Sharper now. They know about the bond. They're coming for the human half. Kai stood. The stars outside shimmered with approaching fire. He whispered, not to her, but to himself, "Then let them try." The hunter craft didn't announce themselves with sound. They arrived like the end of a thought suddenly, silently, violently. The first breach occurred just beyond the hangar perimeter. The shield grid, reinforced barely an hour before, flickered. Once, twice, then collapsed in a shimmer of distorted blue light. The perimeter lights dimmed. The air changed. It grew thick, like pressure was mounting from all directions, as if the very gravity of the world recognized what was descending. Brennan didn't need sensors to know. They were here. He felt them. In his bones. The bond with Vexus hummed like a live wire behind his eyes, sharper now, more primal. She was still airborne. He could feel the pull of her movements in orbit, but her focus had narrowed, honed, sharpened into something far more dangerous than strategy. Rage. They single quotes D tried to kill him, and Vexus had felt it. She was no longer flying a formation. She was hunting. But down here, Kai had no armor, no weapon, no training. He had only the pulsing shard glowing now with a frantic, golden intensity and the realization that 3 hunter ships had landed not to attack the base. They had landed. For him, the corridor shook as the nearest docking bay doors were torn open, not breached, peeled, like the claws of a creature unraveling its prey. Kai bolted from the observatory, the shard held tight to his chest in its containment cradle. Alarms howled above him. Security drones activated across the grid. Synthetic voice warnings echoed down corridors. Breach detected. Breach detected. Hostiles on board. Evacuate non-combatants immediately. He wasn't a combatant. But he wasn't. Evacuating. Not anymore. 2 security officers nearly collided with him in the hall. One shouted, "Brennan, what the hell are you doing?" "Evac routes are this way." Kai didn't stop running. "They're here for me. If I leave, they'll follow. If I stay, we control the ground." "You're just a tech," one of them shouted. But he wasn't. Not anymore. "You're not disposable," Vexus had once said. And now he believed her. The air turned electric. His skin prickled. And suddenly, they were there. Not through the walls. In the walls. The first Void Hunter emerged from a twisting shimmer, like reality was folding inward to make room for something that didn't belong. Tall, humanoid, but wrong in every way. Spindly. Limbs tipped with blade-like fingers, skin shifting constantly like liquid smoke trapped in a humanoid mold. Its face was a void. No eyes, no mouth. Just a dark ripple where light went to die. Kai froze. So did the guards. The hunter looked at them. No, not at them. At Kai. The moment stretched. Then it moved. Faster than sound. The first guard went down with a gurgle. His neck split open before he could raise his rifle. The second fired. Once, twice. Ineffective. And then the hunter reached Kai. But it didn't strike. It touched his chest. Right over the shard. Kai screamed. His body lit up with searing light. The bond surged, flooding his nerves, his muscles, his very blood with Vexus's presence. She was still in orbit, but for an instant, she was inside him. You are not alone, she said. And the hunter recoiled, howling in a frequency that cracked the corridor lights. It stumbled back, smoking where it had touched him, its arm disintegrating. Like it had plunged into a star. Kai collapsed to his knees, panting. And then, through the flames of the corridor, she arrived. Vexus hit the ground like thunder, not descending. Falling. Her impact shattered the corridor floor. Biometal armor gleamed as her wings folded behind her back, steam rising from every plate. The hunter turned, but it was too late. Vexus moved faster than light. Her spear ignited midair, plunging into the creature's chest with a war cry that shook the walls. The void hunter screeched, limbs spasming, dissolving into ash that left no corpse, only emptiness. Kai looked up from the ground. Still dazed, she turned to him. And for a second, he saw everything in her eyes. Not just the warrior, not just the woman, but the storm. You're hurt, she said, kneeling beside him, checking his vitals. Kai shook his head. Just scared. Good, she whispered. That means you're still human. He looked at her. What the hell was that thing? A seether, she said. A mind hunter. They don't kill, they erase. Kai shivered. It touched the shard. And it burned for it, she said. Then her eyes narrowed. She stood. There are more. As if in answer, the lights flickered again. From behind her, 3 more distortions shimmered into view. Vexus stepped in front of Kai. Stay behind me, she ordered, but he stood too. No. She turned, surprised. You said the bond only works if both souls accept it, he said. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a warrior, but I'm yours, and I won't hide. She stared at him. Then nodded once. Then stand beside me. They turned together as the corridor cracked and the void screamed. Kai braced himself. The bond surged. And this time, when Vexus struck, Kai felt it. He was the strike. Her fury was his heartbeat. His courage was her shield. They moved as one. And the hunters finally understood. They hadn't bonded. They had merged. The smoke hadn't cleared when the last void hunter fell. Not that they left bodies. The creatures disintegrated the moment they were defeated, turning into wisps of dark vapor that vanished into nothing, as if they were never meant to exist in the physical world at all. But the scars they left behind were real. Floors cracked, walls scorched. The air smelled of burned ozone and alien blood. And Forward Base Epsilon, once a remote hub of quiet maintenance and logistics, now stood as the front line of a war no one had seen coming. Kai Brennan leaned against the wall, blood dripping from his scalp, ribs aching, heart pounding. He hadn't lifted a single weapon, and yet he had fought. Through the bond, he had felt every strike Vexus made, every deflection of her spear, every movement of her limbs honed over decades of warfare. Her mind had synced with his tightly, unflinchingly, and in that fusion, something new had formed. Not just coordination, not just empathy. Amplification. When he felt fear, she grew stronger to protect him. When she felt pain, he stood taller to carry her. Together, they were no longer just human and Valerie. They were a storm. And storms didn't ask for permission. Vexus stood at the center of the corridor, her biometal armor slowly folding back into its resting configuration. Steam rose from her shoulders. Energy glimmered faintly across her skin, fading with each breath. And then her legs buckled. Kai caught her before she hit the ground. You're shaking, he whispered. So are you, she replied. They both laughed, a broken, tired sound, but real. Vexus leaned her head against his chest. He felt her exhaustion through the bond like waves against rock. But beneath that fatigue, there was something else now. something stronger than adrenaline or survival instinct. Peace. For the first time since they met, the fear was gone. Only then did the overhead lights flicker back to full strength. The base was silent. Except for the pounding of boots. They turned as soldiers rushed into view, weapons drawn too late. Behind them came Colonel Drax, followed by a security team and medical drones. And at the back, slow, deliberate, eyes wide with disbelief, was Commander Brennan. He stopped short when he saw them. Vexus bloodied, scarred, standing tall. Kai wounded, but steady, arm wrapped around her waist. And behind them, the remains of creatures that didn't belong in this world. What the hell happened here? Drax barked. Vexus turned, her voice hoarse but unshaken. We defended your base. Kai stepped forward. They came for me. Because of the bond. Drax looked at the glowing shard still hovering near Kai's chest, now pulsing faintly with a stable golden hue. Brennan stepped forward. This is a violation of command protocols. Valerie emotional entanglements are recognized by interspecies diplomatic law, Vexus interrupted. And the bond saved this base. Kai looked straight into Brennan's eyes. If we hadn't sealed it, I'd be dead, and the base would be overrun. Brennan's jaw twitched. He didn't respond. Instead, Drax raised one brow. What do you propose now? Vexus looked at Kai. Then back at Drax. We leave. A murmur spread through the soldiers. We? Drax echoed. We've completed the bond, she said. And it has evolved beyond what even our own council understands. Kai and we don't belong to your command structures anymore. We're more effective together than apart. And now the Void knows who we are. They'll come again. Kai stepped in. But we won't be here next time. We'll take the fight to them, Brennan scoffed. You're a technician. I was, Kai said. Now I'm a bonded soul, connected to one of the deadliest warriors in the galaxy. And apparently, that makes me dangerous enough for Void Hunters to try and erase me. Drax was silent. Then he turned to the others. Give them a ship, Brennan spun. You can't. I can, Drax said coldly, and I will. If we lose people like them, we've already lost the war. Hours later, Kai and Vexus stood in Bay 12, watching the last modifications being installed on their new vessel. It wasn't large, but it was fast. Fitted with Valerie's stealth tech and human-grade AI guidance. It shimmered like a predator under starlight. They single quotes denamed it Tether. Kai stood on the boarding ramp, looking out at the sky that once seemed too big, too distant, too impossible. Vexus stepped beside him, one hand on his. Are you afraid? She asked. Not anymore, he said. She smiled. Good, because what comes next won't be easy. Kai turned to her. We don't do easy, he said. We do impossible. Inside the ship, the lights dimmed. The engines whirred to life, and as the vessel rose into the dark above forward base Epsilon, two souls once strangers, once divided by species, war, and fear soared forward into a galaxy that now had something new to reckon with. A bonded human and a Valerie warrior. Neither one of them was ever going to fight alone again.